In today's video, I'm going to be answering some of your most asked questions regarding the Nintendo Switch 2. Nintendo's new console is almost here with a release date of June 5th, 2025, and the hype is real. But so's the drama. A lot of people are going crazy over Nintendo's pricing decisions, and what's the deal with the game key cards anyway? Fans have a lot of questions, and today we're going to dive into a few of the internet's most asked questions about the Nintendo Switch 2. Stick around because this is going to get spicy. First, the like button is feeling kinda lonely, so do me a solid and hit that real quick. Question number 1. So why are Switch 2 game prices so high? The base console is $449.99. That's way more than the original Switch's $299 launch price, although it should also be said that as of now, the price point is in question, at least in the United States and Canada. Pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 console were supposed to go live on April 9th, but several days ago, Nintendo announced that they were going to be delaying pre-orders in these regions while it assessed the possible effects of President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs on countries that already had tariffs on the United States. And what about the video games themselves? Switch 2 game pricing is, according to Nintendo, gonna be considered on a case-by-case basis. So that means some games might be $60, others might be $70, and some, like Mario Kart World, the big launch title, is gonna be launching at $80. So what's the deal? Analysts point to a mix of inflation, everything is getting more expensive, but also beefier hardware, and get this, potential tariffs. Some experts say that we might see the console jump to $500 if those tariffs stick. Nintendo's calling it strategic, but fans are not thrilled. Is it greed or just the cost of next-gen gaming? You tell me in the comments. Number 2, so what's the deal with these game key cards? This is where things get weird. Some Switch 2 physical cartridges, game key cards, they don't actually have the full game on them. You pop it in and it's just a fancy download code. You're gonna need an internet connection to grab the game, plus enough storage, sometimes 50 gigabytes or more, considering that Switch 2 games are gonna basically be the full console game. Unlike on the Switch 1, where, for example, a game like Mortal Kombat 1 was only 42 gigabytes, while on the Xbox it was 140 gigabytes. Nintendo says not all games are going to be like this, but titles like Bravely Default and Street Fighter 6 are already confirmed for this system. Fans are not happy about it. Why pay $60, $70, or even $80 for a glorified SD card in a box? Collectors really hate it too. You know, if servers go down years from now, these physical quote-unquote copies might be useless. Nintendo says that it cuts production costs, but it's a tough sell. What do you think? Next up, question 3. Can you resell digital game keycard? The game keycard fiasco has folks worried Nintendo's nudging us toward a digital-only future. Games are getting more expensive, and now a lot of them are not even going to be on the physical media itself anymore. Although an argument can actually be made that this has already been the case for years already. When it comes to Nintendo games themselves, we can fairly assume their games are going to be almost perfectly optimized, and what you get on the cartridge when you buy it is gonna be the game, give or take a couple things. But when it comes to third-party games, you have so many patches that you're probably gonna have to download after you buy the cartridge, and if the servers ever do go down, well, guess what? You're stuck with a totally gimped game that probably doesn't even work or is missing half of the content. That's been going on since the PlayStation 3 generation, believe it or not. A few Nintendo Switch quote-unquote physical games were also download only, and inside the box it came with a download code, which made the physical aspect of it essentially worthless because it was really just a box. The code was only able to be used once, you couldn't resell the game, but with the digital game key cards on the Nintendo Switch 2, that's a little bit different. You actually can resell digital game key cards, and here's how that works. A digital game key card comes in a physical Nintendo Switch 2 game box just like any other game. It's a card that looks like any other Switch 2 game card except that it doesn't have any content on it. It's literally just a key that lets you download the game. So what happens when you put this empty game card in your Nintendo Switch 2? It triggers a download of the game from Nintendo servers. So obviously you're gonna need an internet connection and enough space on your Nintendo Switch or microSD express card. So once you download the game, in order to play it, you're gonna have to have the keycard inserted. That's your proof that you actually bought the game, but you won't need to have an internet connection to play it. You're just gonna need to have the game keycard inside the console. Here's the cool part. The game keycards are not tied to your Nintendo account, so that means that you can resell them. Whoever buys them, they're gonna have to download the game onto their console and they're gonna be able to play it as long as they have the card inserted. So it's not quite as horrible as everyone thought it would be, but it still kind of sucks. Question number 4, can I use my current micro SD card on the Nintendo Switch 2? Yes, but it depends. If the micro SD card that you're currently using on your Nintendo Switch V1, Lite, or OLED is a micro SD Express card, then the answer is yes. You will be able to use it on the Switch 2. But if it's one of the older variants of micro SD cards, then you're not going to be able to use it on the new console. The Nintendo Switch 2 only uses micro SD Express cards because they are many times faster than the regular micro SD card. The reason you might not notice that speed on your Switch right now, if you're using it with an Express card, is that the original Switch was not designed to be able to read data at the speeds that Express cards allow. For example, a microSD Express card can read up to 1 GB per second and more, versus the older microSD cards, they can only go up to around 100 megabytes per second. That's a huge difference in speed, and since the games that the Switch 2 is going to be capable of running are going to be of much higher hardware demands, the speeds that the Express cards offer are going to be absolutely necessary. That's why older microSD cards are not going to work on the Switch 2. Question 5. Are tariffs to blame for the Nintendo Switch 2's $449 price and $80 games like Mario Kart World? Well, to put it simply, no, not really. But they are stirring the pot. Nintendo had already decided on the $449 price before Trump's new tariffs went into effect, with 10% on all imports, 24% in Japan, and 46% on Vietnam. Vietnam is where the Nintendo Switch 2 is made. The original Switch launched at $299, and adjusted for inflation today, that would be about $360. So why the Nintendo Switch 2 is north of $400 has less to do with tariffs and more to do with upgraded hardware. This is a portable console that can run games like Street Fighter 6, Cyberpunk 2077, and Elden Ring almost on par with, and in some cases better than, the Xbox Series S. And it's handheld. The Steam Deck is also pretty powerful as a handheld system, but that thing is like $700. So what you're getting in terms of quality, the Nintendo Switch 2 price is actually a pretty good deal. A few days ago, Nintendo delayed pre-orders in the United States to rethink costs because a 46% tariff on Vietnam could possibly add over $200 to the console. When it comes to the games, $80 reflects their vast content, not import taxes. Digital sales dodge those anyway. Tariffs might push prices up later, but for now, it's Nintendo's call. What do you think? Are tariffs gonna destroy the Nintendo Switch 2? Drop a comment, let me know what you think, and as always, I am gonna keep bringing you more combo videos, online matches, and video game news. I'm Switchplayed, done.